Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the iFit Model podcast. I am your host, Aaron Zambrano of iFit Model. Now, I'd like to welcome you back to this 4-phase series of how to overcome failure. Now, today what we're going to do is we're going to go into the third phase, which is the mental game. Now, this is the part that a lot of people struggle with, but I want to make it clear to you and help you understand that you can overcome it. So today, it's all about the mental game. So let's start the show. So if you were to Google what it takes in order to overcome failure, you would see things like, oh, you got to have goals, you got to be determined, you got to have motivation, you got to believe in yourself, you have to have perseverance, you have to visualize yourself being successful, and you'll see all these things. So, but how do we really use all of these things in order to help us overcome failure? If I said, you know what, in order to make a cake, you need, eggs, sugar, flour, butter, oil, and some frosting. Is that telling you how to make a cake? No, I'm just giving you the ingredients of how to make a cake. Just like if you Google how to overcome failure, it's just giving you the ingredients of how to overcome failure, but how you actually use it and how you put it together really makes a big difference. So I want to talk about what actually goes in your head and the things that you have to believe, because it's no longer about external sources. It's all about what you have inside of you. So I ask people all the time, tell me why you feel you failed at this program. And probably the number one reason that people tell me they failed was because they lacked motivation. But what they're not, I would usually add that you're not failing just because you lacked motivation. You're failing because you also lack persistence. You see, persistence is when you're willing to do anything that it takes. And as when you fail, you continue to move forward. You fail, you continue to move forward. Now, persistence is made up of a lot of things. It's not just, you don't just have persistence, just like you just don't have motivation. And I'll explain. So think about why you started any program. Think about why you started it. Think about how it came to be. You just didn't wake up one day and have motivation. Your motivation was a result of something else. So let's talk about what motivation, where you actually got that motivation from. Chances are you visualized yourself losing 30 pounds. You visualized yourself losing 50 pounds. Chances are you probably said, I saw a picture of me online, or, I saw a picture of me at a friend's wedding and I looked terrible. And if I continue on this path, I'm going to be a lot worse than what I am right now. So you kind of created that fear of failure. And so you went ahead and you were motivated from those two things and you got started. That's a very, very normal process of being motivated. And so you created that motivation. So as time goes on, what happens? You start to lose that motivation. And chances are you completely lose it and then you fail. And that's usually where people stop. And people will stay at a failure point for a long period of time. And then when they're motivated again, because maybe they saw a picture or, it's one of the other same things, they fear failure, they'll start that process again. So they'll go through the process, they'll get motivated, they lose motivation, and then they fail. And then a year later, when it's January again, they do the same thing. So people will keep going through the same cycle over and over and over again. Now, I want to refer back to the very first podcast of this particular series, and it was called Back to the Beginning. Now, I did some things in that podcast that were on purpose, and I got a lot of feedback saying this podcast was extremely motivational and I'm ready to get started. Now, what are the things that I did in that podcast? Well, number one, I talked about having goals. You got to have goals. You got to understand all that. And then I talked about determination. How determined are you really to accomplish the goals that you want to accomplish? Are you willing to run through walls to make this happen? So I really questioned your determination and said, you have to be determined if you really want to do this. Then I asked 3 questions at the very end, and this is probably one of the most powerful parts of that particular podcast. And I said, what happened? What occurred in order for you to get started on this program? What motivated you, in a sense, to get here? What disturbing thing happened? And I had a lot of people tell me that they had to go to the beach with their friends, and or they had to go somewhere with their friends at summertime, and they were really, really embarrassed. And so it was that pain that they felt was the thing that really got them to start listening to how to overcome failure, because they knew they failed. The second question I asked was, how is your life going to be when you accomplish your goals? So think about that. Think about all the ways that your life is going to change when you accomplish your goals. Not if, but when you accomplish your goals. How different will your life be? And then the last thing I asked was, how's your life going to be if you don't accomplish those goals? And that is when a lot of people really felt inspired and they felt bothered. So it went back to number one. It created that point of bothersome, that point of pain, and that inspired them to keep going. So I did a couple things. I had people visualize themselves being successful. I had people find their determination and understand that they are determined. And the third thing I did is I put a fear of failure in their hearts and in their mind. And that fear of failure a lot of times is what motivated people. So I did three things, and all three of those things, even though I didn't talk about motivation one time, all three of those things motivated people to get started again. Okay? So think about that. We visualize yourself being successful. We visualize yourself not being successful. And we talked about your determination. Made sure that you had that determination to get there. And that created motivation. Okay? So again, you don't just wake up one day and say, I'm motivated. There's a point, there's a pain point that you will experience. There's a fear of failure that you're gonna see, and then you're gonna see yourself being 30 or 40 pounds lighter, and you're gonna be like, I'm really ready to do this, and that's when you start a program. Okay, so understand that's the anatomy of motivation. Okay, so we all get going, we all get started, and we're going on the right track, and then what happens? We lose that motivation, right? Everybody loses motivation. Everybody loses motivation. It's kind of like if you're driving if you're driving across country, okay? You're driving from, North Carolina, and you're going all the way to California, okay? Failure, in a sense, small failure is you ran out of gas, okay? Guys, can everybody agree with me that if you drive from North Carolina to California, that at some point you're going to run out of gas? That's failure, guys. Just like at some point in your fitness journey, at some point in your weight loss journey, you are going to fail. Just like you are going to run out of gas. It is inevitable. You have to understand that. Get it through your head that you are going to fail. It is all part of the process. That doesn't mean that you failed completely. It just means that you had a moment in time where you fell off. But just like in that car, what do you have to do? You have to fill that car up. Fill that car up with motivation again to keep you going on the right track. So can everybody understand that failure is going to happen, but it's how you deal with that failure that's really going to make you successful. So you are going to run out of gas, but it's how you deal with running out of gas that's going to get you all the way to California. You're going to fill back up. You're going to fill your car up with that motivation. You're going to fill your mind up with that motivation. So does motivation just come all out of nowhere? No. There's certain things that you've got to do to be motivated, right? So you've got to go back to the beginning. Look at what your goals are. You've got to be determined. You've got to visualize yourself being successful, and you have to have that fear of failure, right? Okay, so I've already talked about, we already know how to get started. Our problem isn't how to get started. Our real problem is how to continue to persevere, how to continue to move forward on the same plan, okay? So what are the things that we need to do? So we already know we need to visualize. We already know we need to visualize the positive and the negative. We already know that we have to be determined, right? but what are some other things that we've got to do? So let's just go back. Let's just start all over again, okay? You got motivated because you visualized and you were determined and, you saw the positive and the negatives and you got started, okay? Now you're going, and you start to lose motivation, okay? And then you fail. Again, what most people do is they stop and they just stay there. They don't try to continue on that same plan because they feel, I failed on this plan, so it's not going to work, so I got to start a whole new plan. No, we want to stay on the same plan. We want to continue to allow ourselves to have a chance to be successful. So at this point, you're on the same plan and you know that you've got to do it. So how do you stay on this plan, and how do you continue to keep that motivation high, and how do you continue to have that perseverance to keep going? Well, the first thing that you've got to do is once you get to that point of failure, you got to be extremely honest with yourself. You got to say, look, the reason why I failed this go round was because of these things. And you've got to list them all out. The more honest you are, the better it's going to be. You have no idea how many times that people have come into my office and they have not said, they have not talked about what they've done to fail. They've talked about, I wasn't on the right workout plan, or, my kids, they eat, mac and cheese and I have to eat it with them. I can't cook 2 separate dinners. They're always blaming other things, and they're not looking at themselves. So you have to be honest with yourself and truly take responsibility for this. This is your body. This is your life. This is your fitness. It all is about you. So you have to be honest with yourself. Stop lying to yourself. Tell yourself the truth of why you were not successful and why you failed. The next thing I want you to do is I want you to forgive yourself. I want you to stop beating yourself up. I want you to stop thinking that you're a failure. And I want you to forgive yourself. Forgive yourself that it's okay that you did that. Forgive yourself that you're going to start making the right decisions. You've got to forgive yourself. The longer you beat yourself up, the less time you actually spend doing something, the less time that you actually spend thinking about the right things to do because you're too busy beating yourself up. Forgive yourself. Now, once you've done that, go back to the very beginning. Now, if you did this exercise with me and you actually wrote down the answers to all the questions that I asked, what was that pain point? What was that thing that made you get started on the plan to begin with? Why did you start? Look at that answer. The second thing is, look at what you wrote whenever you said how your life is going to change when you accomplish those goals. And the third thing is go back and look at that third question. What is your life going to be like when you don't accomplish it? You got it? Now, what I want you to do is I need you to believe in yourself. I need you to know that you can get this done. You are a powerful person. You have the ability to change and control everything that goes on with your body. You have to believe in yourself. Believe in yourself. Have patience. Know that it's going to take time to get you to that point. It's going to take time to get there. And that failure is a part of the process. You're never going to go from North Carolina to South Carolina, North Carolina to California without running out of gas. You're never going to do it. Failure is inevitable, but it's how you deal with failure. It's how you learn the process of failure that's going to help you overcome it. So understand, you got to be patient. You got to be patient. And the last thing is, be determined. How determined are you to accomplish these goals? Are you willing to run through walls? Are you willing to do whatever it takes to make this happen? Be determined. Now, if you can go through all these things, if you can be honest with yourself, if you can forgive yourself, if you can visualize yourself being successful, if you can visualize yourself not being successful, if you can believe in yourself, have patience, and be determined, you will be motivated, and you will start on the process again, and you will get back on track, and you will continue on your ride to California. You will continue on your ride to success. You will continue on that path, and you will see the results that you want to see. But remember, When that failure point comes again, stop. Start all over again. Be honest with yourself. Forgive yourself. Visualize the positives and the negatives. Remember that point of pain. Remember that fear of failure. Believe in yourself. Be patient. And be determined. And if you want to understand how to overcome failure and the things that you have to do inside of your head to win the mental game, you do it like this. Understand that failure is inevitable. It's going to happen. But it's how you deal with it that's going to make you successful. It's how you grow from it that's going to make you successful. It's how you, and the things that you learn from it that's going to make you successful. So guys, this is going to be the shortest episode of this entire thing because it doesn't have to be long. You can beat the mental game. You can win the mental game every time, but you've got to believe in yourself. You got to persevere. You got to be patient. You got to be determined. Do those things and you will be motivated to continue on over and over and over again. Ladies and gentlemen, that's going to wrap up our show today. I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope you understand that you can overcome anything, but you got to believe. You got to believe you can do it. I want you to join us next time when we go into our final and last phase of overcoming failure. Guys, if you have any questions whatsoever, feel free to email me at info@ifitmodel.com. Follow me on Facebook at ifitmodel. It's been an absolute fantastic show. Thank you guys so much for listening, and we'll see you next week.